mercy, look at how
And welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Alan. I am your host, John Alan, and today I have he is a strawberry blonde bearded Norwegian Viking by the name of Andreas Einherjer Sørensen. Now, Andreas, I could have said Andy Sorensen, but I don't want to Americanize your name. I think you've got one of the coolest Norwegian names I've ever heard.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that.
But actually, I shouldn't compliment you. It's your mother who named you. You didn't pick your name.
Yeah, I had no say in that.
You had no say in that. That's like
actually, my middle name I had a say in because I took my father's middle name, Egely.
Egely, yeah.
Egely, that's my real name. Einherjer, that's my title in the Viking world.
Oh, okay. So now let's just get right into it. So you took a name, a new name, based upon the old Viking customs. Talk to me about that. Now you're very active in the Viking martial art known as Glima. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. What is Glima? What is the concept behind it?
Well, basically, Glima is the battlefield martial arts, if you get that grip.
Yes.
When you are disarmed with your sword or shield
or sword, club,
knife, club, axe, whatever you had. Then you had to go into wrestling style of martial arts, in fights or close combat to get your opponent down.
Yeah.
And while your opponent is down, you don't want to roll around with him on the battlefield with 100 other Vikings with swords, right?
So the concept is to get them down as quickly as possible and then get rid of them as quickly as possible. Do enough damage.
Get yourself up.
Do enough damage to them. Do enough damage to them as quickly as possible so that they are out of the fight and you can get back into the fight.
Yeah. The whole name Glima is Old Norse for flash.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, glimt. As a glimt.
Okay, exactly.
So everything happens in a flash, or that's your main goal, right?
Because there's other martial arts styles that involve, and I don't want to say Glima is a non-thinking martial art, but there's other martial arts that use time to build up a strategy to search out the enemies or the opponent's disadvantages and then capitalize on it, and that takes time.
Yeah.
But going back,
for instance, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Karate.
Yes.
Japanese Jiu-Jitsu.
Those things
judo.
take time. Yeah.
It takes time, and it's a game of chess.
Exactly.
Glima is also a game of chess, but it's we utilize pain techniques with elbows and fingers into various
pressure points.
Pressure points.
Okay.
And it's not like the pressure points that makes you unconscious or 5-finger death punch or something like that. It's to manipulate your opponent's body and movements, so he's in a disadvantage.
It's almost like you're trying to distract them by inflicting pain on them so that you then can take the death blow, so to speak.
Or get out of the way. That's the main focus or the main goal. Because on the battlefield, you don't want to grapple for, let's say, 30 seconds. Then some of his comrades are going to stab you in the back, right?
That's one thing that I always thought was so unrealistic. I like that you're mentioning this, because you're talking about a historical martial art that was really used in history. It's not. It's nothing fake about it. It's not a sport. It is a martial art. And I refer to these Hollywood movies. What was that movie with Mel Gibson? The Patriot from the Revolutionary War, where they had the big battle with the American revolutionaries and the British, and they're on this field, and you see people fighting and like one-to-one fighting in this big field with thousands of combatants, and they're only focused on that one person that they're looking at. And I always thought that was so unrealistic.
Yeah.
You don't have, how could you have that much time to fight one person in a full battle with thousands of combatants? It's not realistic.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling that people they trust what the movies are telling you.
The movie is...
I've been in a battle in York with 250 Vikings on one side, 250 Vikings on my side, and we clash in the middle. You don't have time for one-to-one. I can assure you that.
But now, within the art, the martial art of Glima, is the ultimate goal to kill the opponent, or is it to just incapacitate them so that you can move on to the next?
Incapacitate, get yourself out of the way so you can grab a sword or a weapon again.
Okay.
Because this is when you were disarmed. Then this is the Glima part of it was a last resort, so to speak.
I see. Yeah, of course. After you've been disarmed, yes.
Yeah. That's the last resort. When you lose your weapon of choice, say an axe or a knife or a sword, then you have to get in close because your opponent is very, very dangerous on a distance with a sword.
With a sword, of course, yeah. Or a club, they can swing a club, yeah.
Movements, right?
Right.
You have to restrict his movements.
Because
then it was a team fight.
Because, for example, when I was in the Marines and they taught us hand-to-hand combat, a lot of that hand-to-hand combat was with us still holding our rifle. We still had our weapon. Or maybe we still had a knife in our hand. And then when it got down to us not having a weapon in our hand, we were taught how to, to choke a person out, to break their neck, to snap a limb or something like that. So it was like different stages of learning in that hand-to-hand combat. It was a whole process. Whereas Glima is focusing on just how to fight when you have been disarmed.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was a sport, or the wrestling part of it. They competed every day. From the day you were 6, 7 years old, up until you had to have your weapon sharp at 60. That's in the Viking laws.
Okay.
You had to be battle ready till the time you were 60.
Interesting.
And it's
now, this is
uncommon to be 60 years old in the Viking age, I can tell you that.
I was just going to say, this is probably a law that never had to be enforced because most of them were dead. I want to say I read somewhere that if you were, and this is going back to before 1000 AD, like 400 or 500 AD, if you were a Viking and you were 35 years old, you were considered an elder, like a grandfather in the culture. 35 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. Grandpa Andreas.
It's amazing. But they wanted to die in battle because then they went to Valhalla and had a glorious afterlife, so to speak. If you didn't die, if you died of old age, you came down to hell, which is
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is healing hell.
So I would imagine then that for as long as they were able, the men would go out into battle, hopefully to die. So, rather than die of old age. Yeah.
Looking their enemies in the eyes, because if you died an inglorious death, like stabbing in the back, then it was commonly known as you were running away from the battlefield.
So it was a dishonorable death then.
Yeah, you didn't want that.
So the whole thing was to die
in the stomach or clubbed down or something. Yeah.
So the whole thing was to die looking the enemy in the eyes.
Yeah, face forward in the battle. Yeah.
Stop looking me in the eyes, man. You're making me nervous.
Sorry, man. I'm not going to club you over the head. I promise. Now,
fast forwarding to modern times, where can you train Glima? Is this a society? Is this a group that gathers where you can actually train it, or is it more? I see you training at the gym with our friend Christian, and you guys are just doing your thing there. But is there a gathering of others who follow this martial art? How popular is it? In other words, how popular is it in Norway?
The popularity has, not been that great now the last years. Mm-hmm. But you can come and train in Kolbotn. Yeah, it's a wrestling gym there.
That's right. Yeah.
The guys there will take you for a ride.
but those guys are doing more traditional, like Greco-Roman wrestling and whatnot. But I'm sure that's
their main focus. Yeah,
but that's good training for you guys who do Glima. It's still hand-to-hand combat. Yeah.
Every martial art that you train will give you some advantage in other martial arts, because it's the accumulation of information and experience, right?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of muscle memory involved in all of those wrestling type, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, and Glima. It's muscle memory. So you have to get on the mat. You have to practice. You got to roll around there. You've got to experience being at a disadvantage, and then experience what you had to do to get out of that disadvantage. And then your body will remember it. That's pretty much all it is, right?
Yeah. That's the short version of it.
Yeah. Short version. So how long have you been doing this? Did you start off with traditional wrestling and move on to this, or did you start with Glima?
Actually, my martial arts story started when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I started training karate.
Okay.
Shotokan karate.
Yeah.
Then it just progressed from there into Japanese jiu-jitsu, Kyokushin karate, which is a full contact sport where you can kick to the head, and it's a full contact style of karate. And then I went into MMA and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then I met one guy that turned me on to the Viking martial arts.
I see.
And then I went full steam ahead.
Yeah. And how long ago was it when you first started with Glima?
That was in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a ranking system in Glima? Do you know, in other martial arts, you have, brown belt, black belt, green belt, whatever. Is there anything like that? Any ranking system in Glima?
For the purpose of getting students and keeping their enthusiasm up, you have to have some degree of
advancement, a way to chart their advancement.
Levels. Yeah. Levels. But traditionally, no.
Because that's what I was kind of trying to get into, is how do you motivate students to continue in it when there isn't a solid belt system to measure their advancement through that training? Where does the motivation come from? Is it a love for the historical aspect of it?
That's one part of it, yeah. But when I had my gym or dojo or training facility, so to speak, I gave out diplomas.
Okay.
So they gradually got their next diploma.
Okay.
Now you have succeeded in 1 year training, a 2 year training, 1.5.
Okay. So it was measured. It was just measured in how long they had been training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it progressed into we had the belt buckles. You know, the tactical belt buckles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Green and blue and yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to keep the motivation up.
So
the real motivation came from competition.
Okay.
Where I put my guys into fights with, complete strangers.
Yeah.
Which knew how to fight.
Yeah.
And if they won that, we had a little celebration.
Okay. Yeah. So is strictly based on the merit system. I mean, they did the work, then they were recognized for the work they did. I kind of like that. I like that.
Yeah, because on any given day, a black belt, and I'm not going to name martial art.
No.
Blank, right? On any given day, a black belt could, in theory, lose to a white belt.
Yeah.
It's a Hail Mary from the left flank, and you're out, right?
Yeah.
But it's the time accumulated.
Exactly.
That this belt represents, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, you watch. You can watch MMA on UFC, and the one fighter might be a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the other guy they might refer to him as just a mixed martial artist. In other words, he doesn't have a black belt in anything, and he might win. He might beat the one that has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or black belt in whatever. So that belt, of course, it means something. It symbolizes the work that has been done, but it's not every martial art that goes by that belt system. People need to be aware of that. Just because you're not a black belt in this, that doesn't mean that you couldn't fight. And
even though you have a black belt,
you may lose.
You have black belts and you have black belts.
Absolutely. Right? Well, there's stories out there of different dojos or different gyms who have one or several black belts, and it's fake. They haven't earned it. Yeah. They may. You can see that stuff all the time on YouTube about
the fake martial arts.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that is happening, because martial arts, I mean, I have such a respect for it. I took some classes some years ago when I was in college, but other than that, I've never really looked into, I've never submersed myself in that world of martial arts, but it has always fascinated me, and I've always had an enormous amount of respect for those athletes and those practitioners. So when I see these people who do this fake stuff, that's got to make you guys a little bit upset.
Well, not the fact that they're doing it, but I feel so sorry for the students that really.
That's a good answer.
They come in there and they train for X amount of time.
Yeah.
And they really, really think that they're the shit. They are the business.
Yeah.
They know how to defend themselves. And then a real situation comes up, and they're pushing everyone else behind themselves. Yeah. I got this. Yeah. And then just get their shit kicked in.
Get their faces kicked off. Yeah.
Yeah. The teeth and nose, and possibly even death, And I would think, they have this false sense of security.
Right. This false sense of accomplishment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you as a now you had your own training center. What do you call it? A dojo or a school for Glima?
Yeah. It was originally a dojo for Japanese jiu-jitsu. Okay. And then it progressed into Glima.
Okay. Yeah. So that was a big undertaking for you. That's a large amount of responsibility. As we just got done talking about, there's some leaders in the martial arts world who are fake, and they're getting their students hurt. So that was a big responsibility for you to take on.
Of course, yeah.
How did you feel about that? Was it smooth sailing? Was it nothing but fun, or do you have any challenges you can talk about?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of restrictions. It's a lot of paperwork that goes into having a facility like that.
How so? Paperwork.
Yeah, you got responsibilities for the people that you train, first of all.
For their health, of course.
For the health of them, You can't let them fight each other to the point where they break each other, if you know what I mean.
Because aren't there a lot of restrictions? There's a lot of restrictions in Norway about... I remember when Cecilie Brækhus, what a fantastic boxer. Where
I bow down to her.
Oh my gosh, that's my hero. She is my hero. But wasn't there was a big controversy because for years she was not allowed to box in Norway because Norway had restrictions on that. So so that affects you at the dojo level then. That affects you in what you're allowed to allow your students to do.
Yeah, in competition, it's not allowed. But you can train MMA and boxing, wrestling. You can train all these martial arts in the gym. But it's when the competition part comes in, professional competition.
So how do you guys get to really truly test your capabilities then, when the competitive side of it is so restricted here in Norway?
That was an interesting thing because we had Viking markets. We arranged Viking markets with Viking tents and sails, with Viking artifacts.
Yeah.
The thing that we made, clothes, swords, things for the kids, lanterns, everything.
Yeah.
And then in that Viking market, we had also a competition.
Okay.
So we invited people.
So did you guys get a little bit more rough and realistic than the government maybe would allow? Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening to this. So
it was an interesting era.
Well, because in all seriousness, I do wonder how any martial artist, whether it's Glima, whether it's the different forms of karate, jiu-jitsu, boxing, I truly wonder how they can test themselves in their craft in Norway. It seems to be so limiting because of that government oversight. And I say they're overprotective. I'll just say it. I believe the government is overprotective.
Yeah. You got more deaths in cheerleading than in martial arts.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you combine all the martial arts that are trained in Norway, all the way down to Taekwondo up to MMA, there are no deaths. But in cheerleading on a global scale,
there's they're falling, they're breaking their necks and dying. It happens more often than people would think possible. Yeah.
But
they want to control
professional MMA, at least as far as I know, there's been one death, and that was in Dublin, I think, or Ireland.
Yeah, I've heard people say, people throw up statistics and facts that MMA is less destructive, so to speak. I mean, there's less deaths in that than there are in boxing.
There are less damages.
Damages,
life-changing damages in MMA than in boxing, because boxing it's primarily focused on the head, right? And in an MMA fight, you can have one punch to the head and the rest on the mat. Yeah. It's wrestling from there on, or knees to the body, elbows to the thighs,
Although some of those MMA fights are pretty doggone brutal.
Tony Ferguson versus Gaethje, that was an amazing fight. recently.
Do you ever watch? Do you ever watch? They have the Extreme Sport channel here in Norway, and there is a MMA league in South Africa called the EFC.
No, I haven't seen them.
Not the UFC, but the EFC. You should check that out. If you have the Extreme Sports channel, you should check that out.
Okay.
It's
a good channel.
I love it. That is actually, of course, when the UFC first started, I remember very clearly watching the very first UFC fight, and they were showing it on regular television for quite a while. And this was before there were any rules. I mean, they had guys, wearing shoes and kicking each other full in the face when they're down and stuff like that.
Full kicks.
Well, yeah, I remember, I believe it was in the very first UFC or one of the first, there was this big fat guy. This guy must have weighed about 400 pounds, like 200 kilos. Yeah. And his opponent was, a regular size guy, maybe 110 kilos, around 200 pounds, 220 pounds. And the fat guy had gotten knocked down, and he's on his hands and knees, and he's kind of dizzy. And then his opponent he took his time, he sized it up, and then it was just a full force soccer kick to the face. Yeah. And you could see the fat guy that got kicked, you could see a couple of teeth flying out and going all the way across. That
was UFC 1.
That was the very first one. Okay, you've seen it then, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I distinctly remember watching that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go.
I saw an interview with I think it was Frank Shamrock. He was sitting in the back watching this fight and about to come out to fight in that octagon. And they saw it on the monitor in the back, and everyone just sighed and looked at each other and, what the signs up to here. Yeah. This is real.
It was crazy. Then it was legal to headbutt, pulling hair, everything. Pokes, everything.
Yeah, everything. So I remember this one guy had one boxing mitts on, boxing glove.
Yes, yeah.
And the other was.
I remember that guy. Yeah.
Just why?
If you could take some of those fighters and bring them up, bring them into the future, the same age, the same form that they had back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and bring them up to today, I wonder how they would do. I don't think they would do that well, because people have gotten...
No, they wouldn't fare that well.
No, I don't think so, because the training methods of today are light years beyond. I mean, you can see it in the athleticism in these fighters. It's a totally different world.
The best ones to ever do it is a guy named John Jones.
I love that guy. But do you think he was more exciting to watch than Anderson Silva?
No.
I think Anderson Silva was so...
That's my goats. That's my goats. Anderson Silva, and then the second place is George St. Pierre, and then you have the John Jones.
John Jones, yeah.
And he trained in whoop-de-doo martial arts.
Whoop-de-doo, yeah.
Yeah, he says, I trained whoop-de-doo.
Well, and there's a perfect example of what we were talking about before, that you don't necessarily have to be a black belt in a well-known martial art to be a successful MMA fighter.
No.
So I'm thinking...
What you need to do is you have to be good at combining everything together.
So you as a Glima practitioner, how good are your hands? Do you do any handwork for striking?
Yeah, I do. I trained many years in Kyokushin karate and
of
Japanese
course, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, so you got
and some boxing.
Okay.
So and kickboxing as well.
So you've got
my hands and feet. They're not. I'm not overly good.
Muscle memory, like you're
expert in everything,
but muscle memory, like we were talking about. You practice it. You trained it before. It's still there. It's still there.
Yeah, I can hold my own.
Yeah. So tournaments and competition and whatnot, how much experience do you have there? Because again, we have these restrictions here in Norway. So how much tournament experience have you had personally?
With Glima, it's been many fights, because in one Viking market you maybe have 10 or 12 fights in one day.
Yeah.
And they are pretty serious with the elbow strikes and the knees and kicks to the ankles.
Are you guys wearing pads?
No.
No pads. Yeah. So this is bare knuckle.
This is bare knuckle. But you can't fight with a bare knuckle, with a clenched knuckle.
Okay.
With a clenched fist.
I see. Because
on the battlefield you had mitts on, gloves, right, to protect your hands.
Yeah.
So you couldn't make a fist.
Right.
So it's open palm strikes.
I was looking online. I do my research. I did a little research before this episode, and I was looking online at traditional leather gauntlets that the Vikings had. They had these leather, like you say, like mitts. It wasn't even like a glove. It was just this big, thick thing that covered the hands. And I remember thinking, this is a couple of days ago, I was thinking, how in the world did they make a fist? And you're telling me, they didn't make a fist. Yeah. I could see, because it didn't cover, the fingers were open, so I could see where you would be able to grab a weapon. But to make a fist looked impossible. So, okay, you tell me they don't do that.
No, they didn't make a fist. They had open palm strikes to the face.
I see.
And to the body. But
so it was just a bunch of Vikings. It was just a bunch of Vikings bitch slapping people, huh?
I'm telling you, it hurts. If you go into a punch a concrete wall, would you punch it with your knuckles or with an open hand?
Exactly. Well, there you go. It's common sense, actually. If you think about it, if you think of the mechanics of it, yeah.
And it is. You can generate a lot of power in that open palm strike, and I can tell you that. Moses are cracking with those as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's go over a little bit to away from the fighting, the martial part of Viking life, and let's go over to the cultural, the societal part of Viking. You mentioned briefly something about Viking laws. Now, there are Viking laws that have been in place for centuries. And there is from what I understand, a growing group of Norwegians who are taking up these traditional Viking laws and they're applying them to their lives in our modern society.
Yeah.
Where is it where are these? Where can someone find these laws, and how difficult is it to implement into modern life?
It's not difficult at all,
because a lot of it goes on honor, does it not? Honor and honesty and equality, and those should be things that are easy to.
Integrity.
Yeah, integrity.
Honesty, humility, be a good person.
Yeah.
We have a law here in Norway called kardemommeloven, which is basically don't be a dick.
Well, you're right. You're right. That's basically what it is. Yeah.
If you live by that,
you could almost you could almost compare that to the biblical rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's basically the same thing.
Yes, basically the same thing. Because
now I know that there is, at least among my American friends, I know a lot of people, when they think of modern Viking law practitioners, they think right-wing, they think racist, they think neo-Nazi. And that's not the case. I know that because I live here. I spoke with Egil Berle Johnsen a few episodes ago, and he's one of the sweetest, kindest men that I've ever met in my life. He and his wife have adopted black children. for goodness sakes, and they are practitioners. They follow the Viking laws. So, what is this thing? Why are neo-Nazis trying to take over Vikingness, if we can use that word? They try to take it over. They try to make it into something that it's not.
Yeah. This stems from the Second World War, basically. Hitler had a fascination of the Norse mythology. He had a fascination of everything Viking, and he incorporated the swastika in his national party, or the Nazis.
Yep.
And then, because the swastika is not specifically a Viking either, they found it in they found a Buddha with the swastika on his head.
Yeah.
They found it in Egypt. It's a sun cross or whatever.
Yeah.
It's in many cultures.
But Hitler and his boys took that up and kind of made it their own. So ever since then, you mention a swastika or you see a swastika, that's what people think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about the new Nazis, you think swastika, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see Vikings, that's swastika.
Yeah.
And then the Maltese cross has a meaning. When we see symbols like this, we tend to think about different cultures. When you see a lotus thing, you think about Indians, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the swastika is so connected to our culture, our national heritage, and also with Hitler. But if you think just 2 seconds for yourself, Viking Age was from 793 to 1066. Hitler, he lived in the beginning of the 1900s.
Yeah, yeah.
Who has the claim of that swastika?
Exactly.
Who has the claim of that culture?
Exactly.
Not Hitler.
But it's a problem.
And the Vikings, they took the best warriors, the best, some would say females as well.
Yeah, yeah. I married one.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Good for you.
She's a handful, but she's a handful, but it's a good handful. So no, but you guys,
there you go.
The thing about the Viking laws, like we said, it's based in integrity and honor and mutual respect. For anyone who thinks that it's not that, to me, that's a person who is not willing to read history, because it's documented. It's documented that the Vikings were a very open society. I was talking with our mutual friend, Rune Temte, and he was telling me the story of the Black Viking.
Yeah.
This is written. This is a story, and it's not a story about, that disgusting Black Viking. I mean, he was a cool, accepted part of that society.
Yeah.
I told Rune we should pitch a Hollywood movie, and I'll get in shape again and grow my hair long, and
yeah. You would fit perfectly into that. You got your Viking laws down to a T.
Yeah.
You even married one.
Well, I even married one. No, but I think it's a sad thing that a lot of people, especially back home, they see a blonde guy, maybe with a lot of tattoos. He's bearded, he's got long hair, and he's got these crazy looking, as we say in America, runes, but rune, on their arm and stuff. Yeah. And immediately people will think, "Oh, that guy must be a racist. That guy must be a neo-Nazi."
Yeah, automatically, his appearance, his looks will say that he doesn't like other races.
Right.
And that's just stupid.
That is stupid. That's just,
I don't know what to say.
Well, that's judging. That's judging on appearance, and sometimes the same people who are doing that, they don't want that done against them. So again, we go back to treat others the way you would want to be treated.
Of course, yeah.
But to me, it's a fascinating thing. It's you have Glima, which is the martial or the warrior side of it, but then you also have this side that is applied in daily life, and it's such a compassionate and warm thing. It's a lot of people don't think of Vikings as compassionate and warm. They think of the warrior, the killer, the brutal side of it. How does that match? How does that mold into one concept? The violent side, but then the compassionate side. How do you explain that? I can see the wheels. I can see the wheels going around. I see the wheels going around.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I see it. Yeah. I see you guys. But how, for someone who doesn't understand your ways, how can you explain to them that this violent side, this violent historical perception is able to melt with the open-hearted, compassionate, and accepting side?
When you see the Viking community back in the day, the traditional Viking community, you couldn't fight with your neighbor, right?
Right.
You had to take care of your neighbor.
Yes.
And the people that you live with. And it's a village with, let's say, 200 people. You can't go and raid your neighbor's house and pillage and take everything he has.
No.
Because then your next neighbor is going to take revenge for that.
Right.
And you would be standing in the court for it, at the thing. So the compassion and the gentle side of Viking community was that. But when they really wanted something, they switched on the berserker.
Right.
Because when you come into battle, then the Norse mythology comes into place. You wanted to die in battle because that was a glorious battle, glorious death, and then you were ascended to Odin.
Yeah.
You wanted that, and you wanted to make the gods proud, right?
Yeah. And
you really wanted to make your mark in Valhalla.
And your family. You wanted your family to be proud of and remember your legacy.
Yeah, you wanted to bring everything you could home to your family and your village and your community, right?
Yeah.
All the gold, all the silver, all the gems.
Yeah.
The slaves, of course, the strongest slaves, spices, everything that you could get your hands on, right? And then you have to switch on the berserker.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you, in some ways, train to be, to, flip that switch.
To be able to turn that on, yeah.
Yeah, but I think there were psychopaths back then as well.
I'm sure there were.
There were. Yeah.
But the general rule is that when a Viking had to fight, he fought with reckless abandon. Well, not reckless. It was very calculated, and they were skilled. But he fought with his entire self, and he gave his all, and he was prepared to die. He almost wanted to die.
He wanted to die.
He wanted to die. Not almost. He wanted to die. Yeah. But then, when the battle was over, isn't it true that the Vikings showed? I mean, they turned that compassion on immediately. Like if they took over a village or whatever. It wasn't all about abusing the people who they had conquered. They were incorporated into their society with full value, full rights, and equality.
Yep. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's kind of like fight fire with fire. And when you come to shore in a foreign country, and your objective is to bring down the soldiers.
Yeah.
And you don't know how strong they are, so you really have to give it your all.
Sure.
And many times they just ran through these people.
Yeah.
Ran through these civilizations with some ease, and some had difficulties, of course. But they were so turned on by the thoughts that they wanted to meet Odin in Valhalla, and they wanted to make him proud. They wanted him to pick them in front of, the others.
Yeah.
And you have to really give it your all. But when that side of it is over, there's no need to slaughter down kids and and women.
Yeah.
And they're what's it called? Kvinnesyn.
Their view towards women.
Yeah, view towards women. It is it's unmatched even today.
How so?
For instance, if you didn't make your woman happy as a man, the only thing she had to do was go outside in front of people and say, I'm getting a divorce 3 times, and you were divorced.
Holy Lord.
Yeah.
Just okay.
Yeah.
So that put
and then you have to half of the farm, half of your belongings went straight to her.
Yeah. I've actually read that. Yes, she would go out in public and she said it 3 times that she wanted a divorce, and after the 3rd time, so be it, you're divorced, and that's that. And that's a big humiliation for the man, because again, I can't remember how it's worded, but in the Viking laws, there's something specific about how a husband is supposed to treat his wife and elevate her, and if something along those lines, and if he doesn't do it, then he has failed. I kind of like that.
You failed as a man if you don't make your woman happy, And when you were out pillaging and on a raid, or went a Viking, as it's called, she walked around with all the keys. That was the treasure chest. That was the weapons chest. That was the keys to the farm. And she was, the
responsible for the home.
For the whole farm.
Yeah.
She went out, milked the cows.
I wonder if that's why
it was to do on the fields.
I wonder if that's why my Snoopy. I wonder if that's why my Snoopy is so doggone tough. And I think that is. I'm being dead serious now. I think that Norwegian women. I can say this. I went to school with somebody once who. Now, where I grew up, it was out in the rural area of Ohio. There weren't a lot of black people around there, and this girl. This woman actually, when I met her some years after high school, and she found out I was married to my wife, my Norwegian wife, and she says, "Oh yeah, I always knew you would marry a white girl." And I told her she is not a white girl; she is a Norwegian woman. And those are 2 very different things. I say in all
different things.
It is. I say in all seriousness, Norwegian women have something different about them. They have a certain toughness, and I don't think, I don't know if that's because of the Viking roots and the Viking tradition. I don't know what that is, but it is a fact, I think, and I think a lot of people would agree. People have agreed with me before. Norwegian women are just tougher. They have a certain strength and a certain resolve and a certain toughness that in general, not all of them, but in general.
Much of that is cultural, but also.
Well, does that culture? Yeah, but does
how you brought up?
But does that culture? Can that culture thing be traced all the way back to the Viking times? Is that something that still has some influence in the Norwegian society today? Do you think?
I would say so. Yeah. Some people embrace their Vikingness, and others don't. That's just part of it. Some people are ashamed of being from this culture, from this land, from this glorious and amazing heritage.
Well, it's a fascinating country. I've been living here for 20 years, and every day I wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, am I really here? I mean, it's fascinating. Yeah. You guys, I tease and I make fun of, my wife, and I make fun of Norway in general. But
you should.
As I should. Well, I tease because I love. I think it's a fascinating place. It's a fascinating culture. But you say, as you say, there are some people who actually act as if they're ashamed of being Norwegian. Why do you think that is? What is it they're ashamed of?
I think it's the stamp of the new Nazi thing.
Yeah.
Because they also are of the impression that if you're a Viking, you're a new Nazi.
Yeah. It's just a totally wrong conception. Because, I've told you this so many times. Every time I see you, now it's been a while because the gyms have been closed, but when I see you at the gym, what do? We come to each other, we talk. Yeah. It's always a good conversation and the warmest hug. I'm not afraid to hug my brothers, my guys who are my brothers. You give the greatest hugs and it comes from the heart and I can feel it.
Yes, it does. Really.
And the same thing with a lot of the followers of the Viking laws, Viking culture. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the best way to, open up conversation, open up a sharing.
I think so.
When you meet another brother like you don't want to start that off with a handshake. You want to give it a hug,
If you think about where the handshake, and if you think about the origins of a handshake is to show the opposing person that you don't have a weapon. That's where the handshake originated from. And if you want to look at it in historical terms and try to apply that to today, why would I need to show someone like you that I don't have a weapon? You're already my friend. You're already my brother. So get that hand out of the way. Give me a hug.
Of course, you're unknown. Right.
So yeah, exactly.
That's actually a thing. A Swedish hug.
Oh, a Swedish hug.
Yeah, Swedish hug. What's the Viking age was. They had a little knife in their hand while they was hugging you. So they stabbed you in the back.
Okay, yeah. So that hand that goes around the back actually has a knife. Oh boy, those Swedes.
Those Swedes, huh?
Swedes will try to steal that Viking persona, but the Viking persona is Norwegian and Icelandic. It's not Swedish. It's not Danish. It originates with the Norwegian culture. Or am I wrong?
Sort of, yeah. Because it wasn't separated into Norway, Sweden, and Denmark at that time. It was Scandinavia.
Yeah, one place.
The north. So the Swedish side, the Vikings on the Swedish side, as we call it now, they went to Russia. And Swedish Vikings were called Rus.
Yeah.
And they took over Russia. Rusland.
Exactly. Okay.
So the Swedish Vikings took over Russia.
Okay.
Or the Swedish side.
The Swedish side of the Vikings, yeah. Okay.
And the Norwegians on that side of the land, we went to Lindisfarne and took over that, the Newfoundland.
And I guess that's what I'm thinking of, because the image of Vikings in the old days was the Vikings on the boats, the seafaring Vikings. Mm-hmm. And that's why, at least in my mind, I always associate that with the Norwegian side, because it's Norway that has the coastline, the outer coastline.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So, yeah.
But it was also inland Vikings.
Yeah?
So to speak.
They couldn't swim.
No. Land crabs.
No,
the Norwegian Vikings, they went to Newfoundland 500 years before Columbus.
Yeah, forget that Columbus crap. He was far from the first non-native to set foot on those shores. There's even a strong case for saying that even before the Vikings came, that Africans came to North and South America. In Central America, those statues, I cannot remember what they're called or where they're, but there's these statues somewhere in Central America. And I should know this because I read about this all the time. But there are some statues.
Is it the Eastern Island statues?
No. It's on the mainland, and it's in Central America somewhere. And it's pre-Aztec, pre-Maya, pre-Inca. It's centuries before that these statues were built, and their faces are very clearly African.
Okay.
It's not like they're similar to African faces. They look blacker than I do. They are African faces on these statues. Actually, you know what? I'm going to look that up real quick. Hold on. Let me see. I'm doing a Bill Burr. Bill Burr always stops his podcast to look things up. Let's see.
Funny you mentioned that. I saw one of his specials this morning, actually.
Oh, okay. Bill Burr is one of my comedic heroes. That guy is fearless, and hats off to that guy.
Yes.
Hats off to that guy. And if you listen to his...
He talks about many controversial
he's
topics.
not afraid. He is fearless.
Oh, a fearless man.
Let's see. African statues in Central America. And of course, now my internet is slow on my phone. Anyway, there are these statues, and they look like Africans. And you hear stories through several Native American tribes, both in Central America, South America, and North America, who talk about the black faces or the black people that came through their lands at some point. Really fast. I'm not trying to steal any thunder from the Vikings, but it's just interesting to think that the traditional historical accounts that were taught in school, because we were taught in school, it was Columbus. Columbus was the first man there, and it's just not true. I want to know the truth.
Well, if you're interested in history, then you have to look it up, because what's taught in the schools is a diluted version of history, of the cultures, of your heritage and every other country's heritage, So you really have to do a deep dig into legitimate sources.
Yeah, get into the facts, get into the legitimate sources. I think that's something that's missing both in the Norwegian society and especially back home in the United States. Mm-hmm. People are kind of listening to that figurehead, whoever he or she may be, and they're taking everything that they say as the truth. And if you're listening to the wrong figurehead, you're going to be wildly misled.
Yeah, and if you only listen to one source.
Exactly.
You have to, just like martial arts. Why do you call it mixed martial arts? Because it's a mix, and that is the best way to go.
Yeah.
You have to mix it up. You have to learn other things, to combine into one. You can't just stick with one source.
Are you still, talking about learning, are you still learning when it comes to Glima? Or are you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's an ongoing process, isn't it?
You're never finished with learning.
How have you been able to train in these last months since everything has been shut down and all that?
I haven't.
No training at all?
Well, I work in a mental institution where we have a training room. So I've been training some weights and a little bit of walks, just to maintain a little bit.
Keeping the body loose, keeping the cardiovascular.
Stretching, stretching. You'll
probably bounce back into shape very quickly. You get on my nerves. You're so young and fit.
Well, thank you very much for that. I don't feel fit at the moment. Thank you. I'll take that.
There's a compliment in there somewhere.
Yeah, thank you.
No, but I would imagine you would bounce back very quickly. You're still relatively young, and you were in great shape before all of this, and the conditioning and whatnot will come back quickly, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I know for myself, for a while I was, as you know, I'm a power lifter. So here at home, I had, I was doing body weight exercises in my garage. I have an elliptical machine in there and things like that. But after maybe 3 or 4 weeks of that, I got frustrated and bored. But now, shortly, I'll be getting a full set of everything I need to power lift. Everything will be coming to my garage very soon. And then I'll have my focus back. I'll have my motivation back. But it has been a challenge. I'm telling you, it has been a challenge to keep my motivation up.
When that said, John Alan Rees, you are hands down the strongest man I have ever witnessed for myself. I've seen YouTube videos of people squatting 300 kilos, but I've actually seen you in the gym with in the north side of 330 kilos on the bar.
I think you were there the day I had 350 in training. That's the most I've ever lifted in training, 350 kilos. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was there filming the shit.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you filmed it. Yeah, you filmed it. Yes, you filmed it for me. That's right.
I was so in awe. And I filmed the first part where you took it from the rack.
Yeah.
And I just had to see it for myself. I didn't want to see it through the camera lens. So I stopped filming and just watched you. That was a spectacle.
Well, I try to apply. I do apply the discipline that I've learned, the discipline that I've fine-tuned in my powerlifting training. I put that into my daily life. You can't be a successful powerlifter if you don't set goals. Every training block is a 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 week block where I have an end goal. At the end of these weeks, I will be able to lift this much. And then it's following that path all the way through. And there's a symbolic thing that you can lift out of that scenario and apply it to daily life. Setting a goal, doing what it takes to achieve it, meeting all of the hindrances and all of the challenges along the way and getting through it or getting around it or reshaping that challenge so that you can continue towards the goal. That's life right there.
That's life right there. That's some. You're spitting some knowledge now, my friend.
Well, it's all the stuff that I've learned up through the years. So our friend Hege. She has been such an inspiration with my powerlifting. She's the one that kind of kicked me in the butt and made me start powerlifting, because before that I was always a bodybuilder, but she always told me that I had a talent for powerlifting. So I've always, I get my inspiration externally and then I internalize it and turn that inspiration into action. And it's through people like her, and her man, Ed Cohen, people like you and Cristiano Luna. I love when you guys are at the gym, man. It's like, okay, they're here. I got to perform. They're watching. I have to perform. Yeah. So it's, that's how I get my...
Well, we think the same thing when we see you there, This big, massive block of a man. We don't make them as big as you in Norway. I can tell you that. Your shoulders are as wide as your whole length, Well,
I'm for those who've never seen me before, I'm bigger than most Norwegians in the sense that I'm more muscular, but I'm quite short. I'm much shorter than the average Norwegian. You guys are a big country.
Yeah, we're long.
You guys are very, very tall.
Not close to it.
So I stand out in the crowd of fit guys at the gym because I'm short and sturdy and squat. So, but you guys, and when you guys do your type of training, these different exercises you do for balance, for flexibility and mobility. That stuff fascinates me. I always joke with our friend Christian.
Handstands, cartwheels.
Yeah, And of course, all that
kettlebells, walking lunges. Yeah.
So of course, all that stuff can be used to benefit you in Glima. Yeah.
Yeah. The core muscles, the flexibility, the internal muscle strength, the ligaments, isometric training, plyometrics.
Well, it's definitely motivating.
Everything.
It's definitely motivating to see. I miss seeing you guys there. It's been way too long, and actually, even before things shut down, it had been a while already since I had seen you guys. Now you also train people. You've trained Rune Temte.
Yeah.
As he was getting ready for the most recent Marvel, Captain Marvel movie.
Braun Char in Captain Marvel.
How did you guys get that gig? How did you guys get to be trainers for him?
This started in, I think it was 2010. Something along that timeline. Don't quote me on that. But it was a few years ago. Yeah, he had a part in The Last Kingdom as Ubba.
Yeah.
So he contacted me on Facebook, me and my trainer at the time. And
took it from there.
Asked us if we wanted to train him.
Yeah.
So we said yes, of course. This was a well-known actor in the local community.
Yeah, he's something of a celebrity here in Norway.
Yeah.
Although I have to say I didn't know he was an actor. It took a long time after I met him, because the guy he's just so down to earth, and he's not like, "Hi, I'm Rune Temte, Hollywood actor." He doesn't do that.
No.
He so I just knew
love that guy.
Yeah, I just knew him as Rune, and he was just the nicest guy. Another good hugger. He'll give a hug at the drop of a hat. And then it came out later. I think Christian said something about training him for the upcoming movie. And I'm like, oh, he's an actor? And then I'm thinking he's, I don't want to say just a Norwegian actor, but I thought maybe he's getting ready for some show here in Norway. But then it came out, no, this is a Hollywood production. And I'm like, oh, okay. But just a great guy. He's so down to earth. I love that guy.
Yeah, very down to earth. Yeah. Very respectful guy.
Oh, yeah.
Kind-hearted.
Well, I can tell you about his
good guy.
Yeah, I can tell you about his kind-heartedness. I had a talk with him some months ago. He had seen that I had posted an obituary for my son, who died of the heroin overdose, and I ran into Rune after that at the gym, and he just gave me a big old hug, and he was just so supportive, and I love that guy. He brought that's him. He brought tears to my eyes with the compassion and the love that he gave me. So shout out to Rune Temte. I just love him.
Shouts out to Rune Temte. Yeah. He's an outstanding guy.
So you guys got that job to train him up, and then you did. I mean, he there was a transformation that occurred in his physique, in his strength, in his flexibility.
Yeah. Well, I trained him up to that TV series, Last Kingdom, first of all. And then he had a movie, a role in Eddie the Eagle with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
So, and a couple other roles before that.
Yeah.
And then he contacted me for his upcoming role in the Captain Marvel thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, if I can help and if I can contribute to something that benefits him, of course, he's a good friend. It's not a business thing.
No, because you guys have a good friendship. It's a friendship thing. It's not a business, and I can see it. I see it when you guys are together. There's a friendship there.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
And then he had to bulk up. a few kilos.
Yeah.
That the production said, okay, we can have him, but he has to bulk up.
Yeah.
So he contacted me, and I knew Christian Arnason, and he is a very interesting figure.
Christian is. I'm gonna have him. I'm gonna have him on. We've already talked about it. It's gonna happen. He just has to. We just have to find the time to get him on. But he will be a guest here. Yeah.
Good. Because he is an interesting figure.
Yes, he is. Another guy I can't. Another guy I can't stand. Being so young and with 6-pack abs and all. I can't stand him.
Well, he's 42 now, and he has a 6-pack.
No, that guy is really fit. That guy is.
He was
fit.
born without body fat.
Yeah. You know, he just. He was ripped from the womb.
yeah. Just coming out like a.
He came out ready for. He came out ready for Glima.
Well, he is Icelandic, and that's unbroken chain from Norwegians.
There you go.
It's no wonder he's
there you go. Guy. Yeah. No, he's really fit, and he's going to be an interesting guest to have on. Yeah. No, so you were saying, so you and Christian took up this thing to train up Rune for Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
He had to bulk up.
Yeah, I contacted Christian because he's a bodybuilder, and not only a bodybuilder, but he's certified in kettlebells by Steve Maxwell. He's been to
that's right. I had forgotten that. Yeah, he's got that certification for kettlebell training.
Yeah. And he's trained with Ido Portal. Many things that he can touch on when he comes on. But he was the perfect guy, and he's a stand-up, just all-around good guy as well. I love him
yet again, just a good person.
It's a positive energy to have in that environment that Rune needed. You know.
Yeah.
And we call him fixed price. There's no discounts with that guy.
Fixed price Christian. Yeah, he told me that too. Yeah, he said.
Yeah, that's the fixed price. There's no discounts. It's still your sets, as C.T. Fletcher says.
You know, and I like that because that shows a certain amount of confidence.
Yeah.
You don't need to cheapen what you're offering. Here's what it is. If you want to be a part of it, here's what it is. I like that. I like that.
And if you don't want to take part of it, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on my merry way.
It's a good
luck to you.
It's a good positive attitude. Well, that way you know when anybody that you work with, you know they really want to work with you when you present it that way, you know.
Yeah. So, a long story short, I think Rune gained about, I think it was 5 or 6 kilos in the course of 6 months.
Yeah, about 10, 12, 15 pounds, that would be. And it showed because he's a tall guy. He's a tall guy. So when he put on that extra muscle weight, and it was muscle weight, it showed. It just showed right through. Yeah.
Yeah, he just looked like a fucking refrigerator when we were done with him.
He was ready for that movie.
He was ready.
Yeah.
Not just strong, but also flexible.
Yeah, like I say, I would watch you guys when you were training there at the gym, and you were putting him through a lot of mobility exercises. Yeah. And, and I guess you would need that when you see the role that he played in Captain Marvel. He can't be stiff and bulky.
And
he has to be
12-hour days with stunts and sitting still. And then from cold, sitting still, up to stunts again. Yeah. He had to be in phenomenal shape.
Now you guys...
And the thing, training a guy like Rune, I have to give him props for this. Just to take one example, Christian said to him, at 8 o'clock, eat 1 jar of cottage cheese.
Uh-huh.
Just one time. We told him that one time.
Yeah.
2 months later, he said, can I please switch out the cottage cheese now? I'm sick and tired of cottage cheese.
So he did what his trainer told him to do.
Everything
and stuck with it. And see, that's the perfect client right there.
Yes,
that's the perfect client.
That's the wet dream of every PC, right?
Yeah, but you know what? Finding that perfect client when you are a personal trainer, or a fitness trainer, or whatever you want to call it. Finding that perfect client is almost impossible because I haven't done a lot of personal training. I'm kind of selfish, I guess. I'm always looking at my own training. But when I have done it, sometimes in fact, very often, I would find that client who, to me, it's a weird thing. They trust you because they ask you to help them get into shape. But then when you tell them what they have to do, they question everything. And there's a way to question that will lead to giving you an answer to whatever you're wondering about. But then there's also a way of questioning that tells me that you don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's two kinds of questions. It's a question because you honestly and truly want the answer to this question.
Yeah.
And there's a question where you question your credibility.
Yeah, and I would rather that they would just tell me that they don't trust me and they don't want to do the work, and then we can end the relationship right then and there. Yeah. They're not going to waste my time and my reputation, and they're not going to waste their own time.
When I had my gym as well, I didn't want those people who didn't want to train.
Yeah.
But I said to them when I came in, I have a bucket over there. If you have to puke, you're not allowed to puke, stand up and puke. You have to do push-ups on those chairs.
I love it.
While you puke.
I love it.
So I set the standard there.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't mean it, but it's the mindset. Yeah, it's the mindset. Yeah.
So, do you ever think you'll go back to running a gym?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something you want to do. Yeah. Well, I tell you, the market. I think the market. I think that. It's something you are. It's in your very soul, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love martial arts.
Well, I tell you, I think the market.
Martial sports, but martial arts.
Martial arts. Well, I tell you, I think the market is going to be open. I think it's going to be kind of easy to start a gym because there's so many of them that are going under. There's so many of them that can't pay their rent for their training space, which is going to do something with the rental prices. I bet you they're going to go down because they're going to the owners of these buildings are going to get desperate because from my experience of running, I ran 3 gyms at one point. The most difficult thing is getting the rent at a reasonable price so that you don't have so much overhead.
Yeah. Another part of it is people are starving for some training, and
people want to train. Yeah.
So,
well, I was online. Like I told you, I'm building up my own gym. I'll be getting everything I need here in a little while, except I would love to have a cable crossover machine. And you can't find them. I mean, they're showing up online and they're gone in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's
everything is scrapes.
So there's a new market out there for people, like yourself, who are going to get into running their own gym again. Yeah.
I don't know when that is going to fruition, but at some point, I'm going to start my own gym again.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be successful. I mean, you have the right attitude. You can't help but be inspired when you are in the gym sweating. Like I told you, when you guys show up at the gym, it's like, okay, I'm going to kick it up a notch. Andreas and his crew are here. They're watching.
They're watching you. You better step up your game now.
No, but I truly respect what you do within your art, and I truly appreciate your inspiration. I really do.
Thank you. And I really admire you as well. It's with everything combined, the shoulders, the hurdles that you've been through, and you're still pushing it. You're still coming there,
but that's
some heavy weights.
But that's in my very soul. The way I'm looking at it is, okay, I've had 8 shoulder surgeries. Yeah. The last surgery is so serious that I'll probably never be able to bench more than 50 kilos ever again. So I'm looking at that. Okay, that's the situation. So where is the challenge in that? Okay, the challenge is to be able to still compete in powerlifting. And the next thought is, okay, well, how will I still be able to compete in powerlifting? And the answer is, well, I have to, if I can only bench, baby weights for bench, I have to raise my squat and I have to raise my deadlift. So it's like, okay, here we go.
In those areas.
Exactly. So I'm just doing the work so that I can continue to be successful in something that I love. It's really, that's what it boils down to. I love it. It's fun. It gives me a lot. So how do I continue to do it? And I just find a way to do it. Yeah.
That's the name of the game, man.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah. And it's not all about winning the first prize and gold, and it's about the way of life, right? Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, sometimes you can't compete. Yeah. Sometimes you have to restructure your training. Yeah. Sometimes you have to restructure your life.
Well, and it's a thinking game. It's a process of thought patterns. It's a process of analyzing things, whether it's your training or whether it's your life.
Analyzing honestly.
Let's throw that word honestly, because a lot of people set up a lot of unrealistic goals, or they have a lot of unrealistic perceptions of themselves. But what I like about powerlifting is it's pretty much impossible to fool yourself. Either you lift the weight or you don't.
Yeah.
so it's pretty straightforward. There's no
That's
room.
Pretty honest.
Yeah, there's no room for BS in there. So
no. Yeah. Either you get up with those weights or you don't.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a brute awakening.
It's a rude awakening. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, Andreas, I tell you, this it's been too long since I talked with you, so I really enjoyed this. It was good to talk with you again.
This was really good. Thank you very much, and I'm honored to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Oh, I'm honored to have you, and you've got a standing invitation. I call you brother for a reason. I send you much love, my friend. Okay.
Thank you very much. Right back at you, my friend.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Take care.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Alan. Bye, everybody.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am.